Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is Natural Capitalism, which is a book that I've just started reading recently, and it's really very, very interesting, and I want to share some of the ideas with you. So before we get started, let's just take a minute to settle in and get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine all that wonderful oxygen just coursing through your body, through your cells, through your bones, through every bit of you and enlivening you. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress in your jaw, in your neck, your shoulders, back, hips, knees, ankles, feet. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose. And hold it and imagine that it's sparkling light that's coursing through you, through every part of your being and moving beyond and just brightening your life and the lives of those around you. And now let's just gently place our palms together. Softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling in your fingers, feel the tingling in your palms, and how delicious that is. And let's bring ourselves present right here, right now. Good morning, Dido. Thanks so much for being here. Today we're talking about Natural Capitalism, which is a book that I just started reading. And it's actually from 1995, I think. And it's really, really relevant and significant for right now. And what led me, I'm just looking to see if I can find the year quickly. It says 1999 is the copyright. So the reason that I was drawn to read this book is because when I connected with my purpose, it was around the concept of an eco park, which is a place where people will be able to come, like they might go to Epcot or whatever, but to be able to witness, learn about, and actually experience all kinds of technologies and practices that are sustainable, that can create a thriving future for all of us. And in conceptualizing this eco park, which is something that I'm up to now, so if you guys, any of you are engaged in technologies around sustainability or generative ideas around regenerative systems and practices, or you're maybe a planner for large spaces or public venues, I would be very interested in speaking with you. But anyway, one of the things that I'm looking to do in conceptualizing this eco park is looking at an economic system that works. And frankly, right now, with all the societal and global upheaval and financial impact of the Sharon Boyle says, hello, just popping in as we're going out soon. Sharon Boyle, thank you so much for being here and for at least saying hello. That's awesome. Anyway, we're talking about natural capital. So we're talking also about all this upheaval, financial ruin that a lot of people are facing as a result of COVID and the breakdown of a lot of systems. I think that this is a very opportune time for us to be reimagining what a more equitable economic structure would look like. And so in the very beginning of this book, even, and it is somewhat academic, but it's really, really interesting because it's reconceptualizing what just the way that we interact with our economy and money and resources. Anyway, it's a bit academic, but it's really, really worthwhile. And in the very, very beginning, thank you, Dido, you're awesome. This book is written by Paul Hawke and Amory Lovins and Hunter Lovins. So I don't know if there's a link you could find for that on Amazon. It's actually not the easiest book to find necessarily. I don't know if there are new versions of it out or whatever. Anyway, um, it's really important that we start looking in this moment of such radical change at what we can be creating going forward. And we, with COVID and with Black Lives Matter, our attention is very focused on the impact to local economies um, and populations when we have a crisis that has been disruptive in the way that this has. Meantime, we have sort of moved our attention away from the climate crisis. And the truth is that we need to make radical changes in order to be able to maintain this planet as a habitable place for human beings. And we have about 10 years to do that. And what's at the foundation of our success is going to be a shift of mindset that that facilitates our our continued success and equity and quality of life for people. So Sharon says, I'm a friend of Terry. I haven't caught these broadcasts with you yet or your broader edge. Well, Sharon, I invite you to engage with us, and I'm so glad you're here. I hope you'll come back again when you can stay, or that you'll check out these broadcasts after the fact. Anyway, so thank you, Dido. Dido put a link to the book in Amazon so you can check it out. Anyway, when we talk about natural capitalism, one of the first concepts, and this is, I'm just going to share this with you because I'm finding it stimulating, and a little bit of a caveat here. I am a nerd. I am into learning is one of the most important things in my life, and so hopefully you'll find this as stimulating and interesting as I do. So they're saying that an economy needs 4 types of capital to function properly. And I'm just going to say, Sharon says, I'm hoping that the people in supposed power listen and wake up to another way of being. Well, we can't wait for them, Sharon. So we get to do that too and push it to the top too. And I hope that they wake up as well. But I'm not going to wait. And I don't think any of us can afford the luxury of waiting for them to wake up. We get to stimulate it from the populace up as well, and use our voices and use our votes and speak with our representatives and all that good stuff. So if there was ever a time for activism, this is it. So what we're talking about is the 4 types of capital that an economy needs. And this sort of just woke me up to a greater awareness. It's not that I didn't on some level sense these things, but human capital, obviously, in the form of labor, intelligence, culture, and organizations. Financial capital, which is money, cash, investments, monetary instruments. Manufactured capital, and that includes machines, tools, infrastructures, factories, all that stuff. And the one that we neglect in our assessment of value typically is natural capital, and that's our resources, our living systems, our ecosystems, and ecosystem services. So natural capital like fossil fuels, natural capital like trees, natural capital like air and water. And these are factors that are typically not incorporated in our economic model. And then there's a description here of conventional capitalism. And one of the things that jumped out to me around conventional capitalism is that concerns for a healthy environment are important, but must be balanced against the requirements of economic growth if a high standard of living is to be maintained. That's the assumption, is that our environment is expendable in the face of economic growth. And that is one of the things that has that's at the root, in my opinion, of what we're experiencing in the world now, is that we believed that our environment was expendable rather than our lifeblood, and that we thought we could sacrifice it in the name of money because money was more important and the environment was unlimited in a certain way. And we've been proceeding as if our resources were unlimited. So, and then here's a section that's talking about capitalism as if living systems mattered. In other words, capitalism in consideration of the fact that we have limited resources and that our environment is our lifeblood. What a concept. So let's just take a peek at this. The thing about this is that it is based on a really different paradigm, and in the introductory sentence it says natural capitalism and the possibility of a new industrial system are based on a very different mindset and set of values than conventional capitalism. And I figure now with COVID we've recognized that a lot of our values were misplaced. We're reassessing ourselves, hopefully, and reassessing our systems, noticing that our systems are broken. And let's look at some of the new assumptions that we can engage with in order to create an economy and a system, economic system, that is more functional and has prospects for the future. So, number one, the environment is not a minor factor of production, but it's the, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it's the context within which everything is sustained. So it's the thing that's supporting the whole economy. It's propping the whole thing up. And the next is the limiting factor to future economic development is the availability and functionality of natural capital, in particular life supporting services that have no substitutes and currently have no market value. So for instance, there's no substitute for the ocean. There's no substitute for clean air or breathable air. There's no substitute for water. These things are natural capital, and our systems as they've exist have compromised them or traded them off for money as the primary value, versus recognizing that the thing that is going to limit our economic development is the resources that we have and that are irreplaceable. So the next one is misconceived or badly designed business systems, population growth, and wasteful patterns of consumption are the primary causes of the loss of natural capitalism. And all three must be addressed to obtain or achieve a sustainable economy. So three things: population growth, because there's more and more of us. We have to be alert to the impact of our growth of population on our environment. Badly designed business systems that are not in any way efficient and economical in terms of their use or exploitation of natural capital. And the last is wasteful patterns of consumption. And so the wasteful patterns of consumption impact us on all levels, in industry, in our homes, where we have disposable everything. We have disposable paper towels, we have paper napkins, we might have paper plates, which are better than plastic plates, but they're still disposable. They're using trees to wipe our noses and other parts of our body toilet paper, for example. It's pretty ridiculous that we are wasting these incredibly important resources for things that are that we're misusing. You know, not toilet paper so much. We don't want to be reusing that per se, but the idea of paper towels, the idea of paper plates, the idea of plastic utensils and plastic plates that are disposable, that we throw away and stay in our landfills or in our oceans for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So, future economic progress can best take place in democratic, market based systems of production and distribution in which all forms of capital are fully valued, including human, manufactured, financial, and natural capital. So we find that a lot of our financial decisions are dictated by price rather than resources, and also by ethics. So, for instance, we've all heard about sweatshops that produce clothing at a very low price. Well, what that's doing is not valuing the human capital. We also look at the subsidies that have been granted to the fossil fuel industry. When there's a price on oil, it's talking about the extraction process. It's not talking about the cost to the environment. It's not talking about the cost to our waterways. It's not talking about the cost to communities and their health. It's not talking about all the seemingly peripheral costs around the production of all materials and output. Okay, so Dido says the authors have written an article called A Roadmap for Natural Capitalism in the Harvard Business Review. And that is in our comments here. So please, Dido, thank you so much for that link. I invite everybody to check it out and engage in this academic but really currently very significant topic. And Majid, thank you, says I speak well. Thank you very much. I'm having help from the book though, but thank you. Okay, so next thing, future economic progress can best, I read that. Okay, one of the keys to the most beneficial employment of people, money, and the environment is radical increases in resource productivity. So this is a really cool thing to be talking about. What is resource productivity? It's saying, when we have a resource, so for instance, let's say paper, our resource is trees, which may not be the best source from which to make paper. Maybe it would be better to be making paper from more readily renewable resources like hemp or something called kanaf or bamboo or any number of other things. Thanks so much for joining us, Sharon. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else who's joining us. And you too, Sharon. Have a blessed day. So, radical increases in resource productivity. So the idea is to be able to take a resource, whatever it is, the material that we're making paper, we take that resource, we make the paper, then we reuse the paper. We also make sure that the waste that is generated from the process of making the paper is as efficient as it possibly can be. Now, in paper making, there's a lot of water used and there's a lot of chemicals used. And with the more chemicals we use, the harder it is to clean the water that we use to make the paper. And so we want to be able to be recycling all these different components. And there's a concept called circular economy, which is really a model of what nature does. Nature knows no waste. There's no such thing as waste in nature. Everything has its purpose and its cycle, and it goes through that cycle, and it's part of a bigger whole. And that's really the foundation assumption that we need to be operating from, is nothing exists within a vacuum, and that every action impacts the greater whole. And this is something that we're recognizing in terms of being one human family, that things that affect one group on one side of the world also are impacting people on the other side of the world, because it's not such a big world anymore. And so radical increases in resource productivity means using, reusing, recycling, efficiencies, awareness of all the resources that are being employed. And then human welfare is best served by improving the quality and flow of desired services delivered, rather than by merely increasing the total dollar flow. So the health of economies has been measured by things such as the GDP, and which is really the churning of money and dollars generated. And that is such an inappropriate metric, because it is completely dissociated from the reality of life. And so if we're putting more attention on quality and desired services as values, valuing quality rather than quantity, and having things that we can use for 50 years or more, sort of things, having things that we can repair rather than replace, having things that are not idle, just consumer treats, that the next shiny thing, rather than focusing on volume and quantity, to be looking truly at quality and the flow of services. So right now, through what we've experienced with COVID, we've recognized that our supply channels are disrupted, and there is not a flow of services. Even with the testing, even with our medical treatment, we're finding that there is a disruption to the flow of services. And if we were to be focusing more on systems that operated more smoothly, that operated more equitably and more justly to all people, then our quality of life as a species would be improved, and as the quality of life for other people is improved by virtue of our connection and our association, it improves life for us as well. Dido says, I looked up definitions for a circular economy. One is, a circular economy is an economic system aimed at eliminating waste and the continued use of resources, the continual use of resources. Exactly. So a circular economy is saying everything gets reused. In an ideal system, it is based on zero waste. So economic and environmental sustainability depends on redressing global inequities of income and material well-being. And that's what I was just speaking about, is that the inequities of financial well-being and material well-being really can help to perpetuate, just from a very academic standpoint, let alone a moral one, help to perpetuate the deep challenges to a functioning culture. Because if people are disenfranchised, how can people who are not well cared for be able to function well. It's just on a strictly academic level, it just doesn't make sense that we don't care for all of us. If we care for all of us, we can all function together. We can all produce more. We can all, or better. We could all have a better quality of life. When there's a better quality of life, there is ideally less friction, there is less strife, there is a smoother working of things. That's the vision. And last but not least, the best long term environment for commerce is provided by true democratic systems of governance that are based on the needs of the people rather than business. And this is probably one of the biggest governmental issues here and probably around the world right now, is that we have elevated corporations to be able to have the rights of humans, and as such they are now running the world because they have more money than governments, and they are making decisions that are based on a notion of profit rather than humanity, rather than respecting natural capital. And so we really need to be looking at our laws that have empowered business entities to have more rights than human beings, and to that have superseded our rights as human beings. So we get to be activists now. Now more than ever, we're called to be speaking to our representatives to let them know that we are not okay with the status quo as it's existed, that we're not okay with empowering corporations to be able to direct the destiny for all of us on the planet. And so there are radical changes that need to be made, and they can be made. We can make these changes. The first step to making these changes is gaining an awareness of how things currently operate, what the fundamental assumptions are, and then allowing ourselves the liberty to explore those assumptions and recognize that each of us matters, that our voices all count, that we all can make a difference, and it just takes us taking action, becoming aware, getting educated, and let's envision a new future together, like collectively. Let's really do this. Let's know that it's ours to create. So that's it for today. That's the economics lesson, and also a sustainability lesson talking about circular economy. This week is World Unity Week. I invite you to check it out. I think the website is worldunity.org. And I do have a podcast called Sustainability Now with my partner, Scott Billy. And Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be having an open Zoom room conversation on World Unity Week with the topic of circular economy. And we're going to have a guest who's awesome, whose name is Sean Steed. He has a company called Change Climate, and it is modeled on, it has a circular economy model, and his company produces a non-toxic, non-carcinogenic bioepoxy, which is being made as a byproduct of the palm industry. And his vision and what he's working with his company is to transform the palm industry to a regenerative agriculture model, rather than the slash and burn that is creating incredible amounts of CO2 that is polluting the planet. However, we can't just make an instant migration from from the current palm oil industry because it will disenfranchise more than 53 million people and totally decimate an economy. So there needs to be a just transition into a more sustainable economy. And that is actually something that is foundational to the whole notion of sustainability, is for people who, for instance, are in the fossil fuel industry to find a transitional step so that they are not put into financial ruin, that they can still support their families and support their lives. We need to be able to look at how we can create transitional opportunities, and there are many, many, many. So this is an area that I am passionate about, sustainability. Dido has put the link to our podcast. Thank you so much, Dido, in the chat. So if you check out our website, it'll tell you about World Unity Week there too. I invite you to join us. We also have hangouts every Thursday night where we share movies or interviews and discussion, and we often have the person that we've interviewed as part of our conversation. So our website is sustainabilitynow.global. I invite you to check it out. And we're going to do this thing. We can do this thing together, and we can do it from a place of love and vision and hope and inspiration. So let's get on it. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and you're here with me on Enlightened World Network. Please be sure to check out the other programming on Enlightened World Network. Wonderful, wonderful, connecting, deepening, enlightening programming and information. So that's it for today. Dido says sustainable economic transitions. Love it. Oh, and Dido, thank you so much for putting a link to World Unity Week. It is going on now, so I invite you to check it out. There is a climate, sustainability, no, let me think. It's environment, climate, and food stage. That's where we'll be. And all kinds of other really wonderful programming on that as well. And it is free, so please, please check it out. We get to engage with the world and create it to be the dream that we dream is possible. With that, lots of love, lots of compassion. I'm here at 9 a.m. weekday mornings, that's Eastern time, and I hope that you'll come back to visit again. Dido, you are so, so welcome. Lots of love.